Guys, welcome to the live stream. I thought that maybe we'd try to write a song. Now, the way that songwriting goes, lots of wrong notes, lots of near misses, and a whole bunch of crap. So, trying this, we'll have all of that as part of the experience. Um, I've been trying to think of a new song, and a lot of times it just starts with music. You start fiddling around, and hope to come up with something. And if that doesn't work, sometimes you change what you're using. You could change your tools, different ukulele, and maybe capo. On a rare occasion, for me at least, I start with lyrics. It almost never happens. It's almost always music first. Blah, 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 blah. What's that sound like? And across time, you la la la. Oh, hey, there's a phrase or something that can be used that turns into a title or the start of a verse, maybe. Choruses usually come a little bit later for me, but titles sometimes happen, at least a working title. Um, when you're trying to think of a song, I think for most artists, a lot of it is kind of sort of channeling through the ether. So, like, it's not real for me, at least. It's not a thing where you sit down, you have a plan, and you go, okay, if I connect part A with part B, we'll have a song. I mean, there is a little bit of connecting, but it's more after the fact for me. It's kind of like solving a puzzle. You get these different pieces together, and then you hope that you can find ways to connect. And there's a process where you got something that feels like it might be working, and across time, you keep doing it until you come up with something where you're like, okay, I think that's ready to record. Another thing that happens for me mostly is that when I get to the recording process, things will change again. Um, Most often when doing the vocal. So you'll have the lyrics, you'll be trying to put them out, and suddenly a line or two changes, or a couple words. Very rarely does the music change because I think that's the thing I lock in before recording. But the music will change in the process of writing. Today, I was trying to think of what to write, and I think the last couple songs that I was putting together in preparation for whatever the next album is going to be, I've got over in the Win Solo playlist. You'll see that there's a bit that's called "The World from My Bed." I think that one's going to get full production. I also just did "In the Aftermath." I like that one a lot, but I'm gonna let it sit for a little bit and breathe. We'll see if we want to come back to it. If you want to go to full production, drop a comment on it. In the meantime, today was a rare occasion as I started to think about what to write. And you often find inspiration in unusual places. The trick is making that inspiration not be boring, right? And if you find yourself suddenly inspired by taking out the trash, it might not necessarily be the best way to make a song out of it. Maybe you could make some kind of a punk rock song. I'm taking out the trash, but it's kind of a one note sort of thing. Oftentimes, when I write, I'll try to have multiple meanings, and I like that because you can, as a listener, interpret for yourself how you see it. How I mean it is my own thing, but it doesn't have to be what you do. Today, my inspiration came from being not exactly cut off in traffic, but I think we can all relate to having trouble with other drivers. In my neighborhood, it was trash day, so everybody has a bin out, and rather than keeping it on the edge of their driveway, a lot of people put it up against the curb in the street. Kind of strange. Some places maybe you do that, but I don't know. It's sort of like in our neighborhood, there's the road that I live on, and you don't see it as often. And then there's the road with the bigger houses, and of course, they all do it. Now, I was dropping off my daughter to school, and I was heading back home. I took this big house route, and what I found was all these bins are out in the street, but suddenly there's an unusual amount of traffic leaving the community. And I think this is all people are also dropping off their children. But instead of just like one or two cars, which is usually what you see in a community of this size, there were half a dozen. Now, when you're driving, as you know, if you're on the side with the bins, you got to yield. So you kind of brake and wait for the other car to go past. Well, I was doing this and I noticed that nobody else was. So about six different cars all went past. So I kept going up a bin and stopping and going around. And like eventually I was like, fuck this. Oh yeah, sorry about that language and all. Um so there's probably more swearing in live streams, aren't there? Uh so anyway, I started to think about that thing of people with a me first attitude and the entitlement thing. And yeah, I think back on the Beatles, Let It Be, a lot of stuff goes back to the Beatles with me. Um, George Harrison did I Me Mine. And that might have been one of the first songs that started talking about this idea of being a little self centered. Um, the phrase came to my mind, think for yourself. And this was initially with the thought that you're thinking about yourself. But I like saying think for yourself because it allowed me to get to more than one meaning. And I came home, poured a coffee, and as I started to work on what might go with that phrase, I suddenly had lyrics pouring out onto the page, which of course are going to change. They've already changed. First, I was doing it actually on my phone. I often will when I'm lack for pencil or paper or whatever pen. I'll grab the phone and I'll write in my notes, here's some lyrics. And there's a bunch of them that never make anything, but this one I thought, hey, I'm going to write this. I'm going to try to make it so that it's more of a relatable song, so that it's not all about being cut off in traffic or other drivers. Once again, it's not all that great of a song topic. So I've got this whole, well, yeah, you think for yourself and about nobody else, while your truth is on a shelf controlled by somebody's wealth. I kind of like that, right? You get a little bit of this whole class warfare economic kind of thing to it. Maybe it's relatable. It has a little bit of that punk rock feel to it. And maybe it's not too preachy. There's a little bit of preachy to it, more than I like to preach, but it's a little. I think in these times, it's not necessarily an unheard of sentiment. So I had this whole thing. I'm putting out these lyrics, and it was only after I had all that it occurred to me that the Beatles had a song called "Think for Yourself." Well, their song was the idea of you're leaving a girlfriend, and they're gonna have to think for themselves. So think for yourself. I have a different meaning for it. So let's call it a working title, but I don't think I need to change the phrase. Well, you think about yourself. Kind of sucks. Maybe we end up there. I don't know. We'll see where we land. So next comes trying to come up with music. Here's where the wrong notes come in. But just before going live, I started playing around with the idea. Well, the Ramones do a lot of C sharp, and that didn't quite sit. So I was like, well, let's go up half a step. It's like that sounds kind of nice. I have no idea what that chord is. It's something. And let's bring it down to a B after that. All right. That's kind of nice. Resolves okay. Whatever this is, the B, the A, that seems kind of chorusy. But you want to make sure that, like, at some point, we get to something that's not so much of no, I don't know music theory for shit. So something that's not so much a major chord. So that sounds kind of nice. That's more of a D minor. Working on a cover of a Oasis song, Little by Little, when they do this chord. I really like that. I can't rip them off, so I'm gonna go minor. I've been doing a lot of B minor recently. I love the seventh namesake thing. Here's a thing that you might not always know. But I don't know music theory, but if you look at any of the chords for my arrangements, I love doing the seventh chord. It might be a namesake thing. Anyway, so we got like something like well, think for yourself and about nobody else while the future's on a shelf and controlled by somebody's well. Now that's got too many beats to it. Controlled by somebody's wealth. Controlled by wealth. Let's see. When you think for yourself and about nobody else while the future's on a shelf. Controlled by wealth. Controlled by the wealth. Blah blah blah. Well, we're gonna figure that one out. It doesn't really work. But let's try to get to the verse. Okay. Let's see. And we got for a verse, and my handwriting is atrocious, by the way. Here, take a look. Oh my gosh. It's very not readable. It's sort of like I'm writing code. Anyway, when we get to the recording process, this will all be on a sheet typed into Microsoft Word and have the chords with it and you can follow along while I'm playing. So if you're ever watching me on one of my recordings where I'm looking at an iPad, or it used to be a piece of paper, but I've upgraded. It's it's always a Word document where I've created a table and put in my lyrics and my chords. I did like having the paper because when things were changing while recording, I could scratch it out live and write in the change. I don't think I do that on the iPad really. I suppose I could. I just kind of remember the change and do it in the moment, and then update the Word document later. That whole process will get his workflow worked out. Anyway, our next verse is let's see. And all the times you watched them suffering, laying reclined, your mouth you were stuffing. Well, that's what you get, you said. If they followed the rules, it wouldn't be. Hmm, I don't know. I like the mouth stuffing thing. The follow the rules kind of feels shit. Well, that's what you get, you said. If they. Buh. So sometimes you have these placeholder lines where you just put in whatever because it fills out the line. And sometimes it's nonsense, So if they blah 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 blah, it gets you something. Um, so that line is probably going to change. It's shit. Okay, so let's see if this verse survives at all. I feel like I've got too many verses. This thing is fairly long, but we'll figure it out. We can trim it later. Let's just see if we can figure out how a verse might go. So if we've got starting with the chorus, I don't often start with the chorus, so that's kind of fun. It's on the show. Control something that's controlled by our wealth. We gotta fix that too. Uh, and all the times you watch them suffering. And so we're big. All the times. No, we're not going to go to D. That doesn't work. And all the times you suffering and stuff. That's not so bad, right? Well, and all those times you watch them suffering around your mouth, stuff. Hmm. Well, that's what you get, you said. Okay, so well, all the times you watch them suffering, time the mouth, them stuff and well, that, no, minor doesn't work. No, so it's asking me to get no. So, all the times you watch them suffering, time your mouth, them stuff. Oh, geez, okay. That's what you get, you said. It didn't work. Ooh, okay, there we go. Okay, so that's it. All these times you watch them suffering, then stuff. Well, that's what you get. You said da 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 da. Oh, da 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 da. This is for yourself and by anybody else. Well, Jesus on the shelf, by the well. Again, now we keep going. I'm not getting that chord, do I? Okay, so if we got that going, now we have a bridge. Uh, okay, but from time to time you find you're on the wrong side of it. Oh, that's kind of nice line. Waiting in lines like your life depended on it. Too many consonants. And you'd like to speak with a manager who will never hear the end of it. Well, I like that. But manager again kind of has too many beats. So we'll have to rework that one. But how do we get to a bridge? Let's see. So let's play it through a little bit. We go. Oh, seventh. I told you. Okay, well, maybe something like that. So that's the C minor, the A, C minor, A7. Ooh, I like that. All right, so unlike my family, I'm going to spare you having to play that sucker through millions of times before we get something that's a little bit more locked down. But I think we made some decent progress right there together. So stay tuned for our next live stream where we see where we take it. There are more lines here. Obviously, there's some stuff that needs to be reworked too. But rather than them playing the whole thing through and trying to arrange it right now, I think we're going to celebrate having made some progress and get another coffee. Thanks, runners. Talk to you soon.